Hey, gorgeous Aminata here. I'm so glad to be with you again. Today, I'm going to share an excerpt from a very special program we had celebrating the life of Frederick Douglass. And I'm celebrating this today because when I think of the 4th of July, when I think of freedom and independence, and I'm celebrating this today because when I think of the 4th of July, when I think of freedom and independence, I think of Frederick Douglass, who made this fabulous remark when he was asked to speak for a 4th of July celebration back in the 1850s. He says, "What to the slave is your 4th of July?" And so ever since then, as opposed to protesting or being upset with people who want to celebrate the 4th of July, I use the 4th of July to remember Frederick Douglass and his concern for all people, for liberation for all people. So what you're going to hear is a conversation between me and my son, Gabriel Anthony-Kemp, who told me back in, I think, 2021, he's like, "Mommy, Frederick Douglass was an OG." And I was like, oh, wow, I love how he's phrasing it that way. So you're going to hear me talk with Gabriel a little bit about why he loved Frederick Douglass. And then you're going to hear me read an excerpt from Frederick Douglass's autobiography. And trauma alert, the excerpt that I read, which appears in the first few pages of his narrative, shows you the physical and intimates the sexual violence of slavery. If you would like to, check out the show notes. Go to my website, dramanda to get your Ancestors Guide. It's a free guide for how to connect with your ancestors. Peace and love.
Gabriel Anthony-Kemp is a young entrepreneur. He's a meditation leader in our community. This is a quote that Gabriel picked out. In 1845, in his book, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, he writes, "For my part, I should prefer death to hopeless bondage." Gabriel, tell us how you encountered Frederick Douglass and why you chose this quote.
Great. Thanks for having me, Mom. I first encountered Frederick Douglass, I guess probably from you early on, but I didn't study him until my freshman year in college. Had a great professor and reread the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, and we had to write a few essays on it. But I've always looked at Frederick Douglass as an inspiration, like an uncompromising will, an immense kind of foresight, a visionary, extremely intellectually inclined, and it's just someone who's willing to really walk the walk to the fullest extent.
Yeah.
He pretty much just tactically ran away, and he set his mind to that it's going to be this or it's going to be death. In order for him not just to be able to emancipate himself, and then to not even just emancipate himself, but to work for the emancipation of others and to share his story with the world, I don't think that can come from a mind that accepted slavery. I think that can only come from a mind from a human being that can look at exactly what's in front of him, but also decide to see something else or see another possibility, no matter how dire the immediate reality seems.
Yeah. To take the action, you have to be able to see another possibility.
Yeah. One other thing that I really admire about Frederick Douglass as well is his faith in humanity. At the same time, to be able to sit with both, be able to sit with everything bad, and then to also be able to say, you know what, I feel almost more sorry for the slave masters and the slave drivers than I do for the slaves. To be able to hold that and realize that has a lasting impact on those human beings as well. I don't think that you can, maybe you can escape, but I don't think that you make the commitment to the future and the present that he makes unless you have an extreme faith in humanity.
That is so interesting. I want to read a quote from his autobiography. I'm going to give you a trauma alert because there's going to be violence in here and intimated sexual violence as well. In 1845, he published The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. And this is very early in the narrative, in the first couple of pages. He writes, "I was born in Tuckahoe in Talbot County, Maryland. My mother was named Harriet Bailey. My father was a white man. My mother and I were separated when I was an infant before I knew her as my mother. I have had two masters. My first master's name was Anthony. He was a cruel man, hardened by a long life of slave holding. I have often been awakened at the dawn of day by the most heart-rending shrieks of an old aunt of mine, whom he used to tie up to a joist and whip upon her naked back till she was literally covered with blood. Before he commenced whipping Aunt Hester, he took her into the kitchen and stripped her from neck to waist, leaving her neck, shoulders, and back entirely naked. He then told her to cross her hands, calling her at the same time a blank B. After crossing her hand, he tied them with a strong rope and led her to a stool under a large hook in the joist. He made her stand upon the stool and tied her hands to the hook. Her arms were stretched up their full length so that she stood upon the ends of her toes. He then said to her, "You I'll learn you how to disobey my orders." He commenced to lay on the heavy cowskin, and soon the warm red blood came dripping to the floor. I was so terrified and horror-stricken at the sight that I hid myself in a closet and dared not venture out until long after the bloody transaction was over. I wanted to read that quote out loud because when Gabriel said that what struck out for him was about he had to have us see another possibility before he could take that step out, take those actions out into freedom. I just want us to remember what he had seen even as a young child. And I guess I don't bring this up to be like, oh, Frederick Douglass was an extraordinary, unique person. Like, therefore, none of us could do it. But I guess I just wanted to lift up, wow, just what an immense vision. Surely to have a vision after having been subjected to those kind of visions as a young child. So Frederick Douglass, he freed himself, he ran away. We know this. And as Gabriel said, he didn't just free himself. He looked back to say, how can I free other enslaved people and other Black people? And one of the ways he did that was by writing his autobiography, by becoming this speaker, this orator, and by lobbying to have Black men be allowed to fight in the war for their freedom. He felt it was very important for Black people to be active agents of our lives. And as you all know, we did have the Civil War, and Black men were allowed to fight, and Black men did die and did distinguish themselves